In Thunderbolts, we follow Yelena Belova, who's been completing Black Ops missions for CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. She is sent on a mission where she encounters several other Black Ops agents, including Ghost, US Agent, and Taskmaster. They duke it out a bit, they meet a lost puppy named Bob, and the crew ends up teaming up to survive a mutual threat, picking up super soldiers Red Guardian and the beloved Winter Soldier in the process. They butt heads with each other while trying to work together to defeat an Avengers-level threat, showing us their capabilities and their struggles in the process. I'm keeping the synopsis kind of vague to avoid spoilers, but it's a superhero team-up consisting mostly of characters who aren't known for being very heroic. Some of these characters have a very dark past, namely Yelena. She is haunted by the bad that she's done with the Widows, and she sees herself as an irredeemable scoundrel. For her, it's a story about guilt, but overall, I think the core subject is redemption. It's about trying to pull yourself out of the pit of self-loathing and shame that we often put ourselves in, and becoming more than just a person who's defined by their lowest points in life. We have characters who have been used as living weapons sent to kill people for reasons of malice and greed, heroes fallen from grace, and then Red Guardian. These are characters who are unlikely to be seen as heroes even if they tried, not just because of the bad that they've done, but also because some of them are jerks. But they command sympathy through their vulnerabilities. They're all in a very dark place in life because of the struggles that they carry, and naturally you can't run from the things that you carry within you. Between them, they carry guilt, shame, depression, and pain. Their fights with their inner darkness is depicted literally through dialogue, but also figuratively through some of the movie's more surreal elements. This is probably the most symbolic Marvel picture yet. There is a point in the third act where the movie is so focused on symbolism that it kind of just takes over. Like, what we're seeing on screen wouldn't make sense without the allegory behind it. I really love how all of that culminates in the end. This is definitely some of the MCU's darker subject matter, excluding the recent Daredevil Born Again. We get glimpses of some of the tragic experiences these characters have lived through. The depictions are pretty tame. It is PG-13, but of course some of those struggles could hit too close to home, or be cathartic and even relatable to see in these characters, depending on how you look at it. Since this is a Marvel movie, it cannot possibly be made without some amount of humor in it. I gotta say though, I am very surprised by the amount of jokes that they jammed into a movie like this. It is a very jokey movie. Putting this much humor in a story about misfits plagued by guilt and depression makes the tone feel really messy and confused. I know that they're probably thinking that this is a dark story and they don't want it to be too punishing to watch, so they've sprinkled little jokes throughout it to try and lighten it up. It's not even that humor doesn't belong in a movie with dark subject matter at all, it's specifically how precious and clowny the jokes are that make the tone feel really confused. They're not all cheesy, a lot of them are very subtle jokes that aren't meant to cause big laughs so much as they're just kind of meant to make you blow air out of your nose a little bit, but then other times the jokes are pretty over the top and cheesy. Some of them were pretty funny, but they really pull you out from seeing it as a serious movie overall, which really undermines the darker, more serious parts. It's just another instance of Marvel trying to do too many different things and please too many different audience types with one movie. Their lack of tone management is part of the reason that a lot of their movies just feel kind of sloppy now. Like, honestly, there are entire scenes fueled only by silly dialogue that could have been replaced with more action scenes because they were just muddling the story. And it takes a while for the movie to feel like it really started. For the first 40 minutes or so, it jumps back and forth between silly scenes of the team trying to escape a building and then slow-moving developments with Val. But among other things that Marvel is well known for, big spectacle is a big one. It's still great here when compared to typical action movie spectacle. It is notably a little bit less than what the studio is known for. Like in the final moments of the movie, I actually had the thought, oh, that's strange, they opted not to include a typical Marvel big CGI third act battle. I started thinking about it more and I realized that I think it was actually a fight that had gone down a few scenes prior that I think that was their big third act fight, which should indicate that perhaps it wasn't Marvel's most epic fight. It was still good though, I enjoyed it. With so many characters in the movie, of course not all of them are going to be big players, but some of them are great. Yelena is the main character and she really delivers on all fronts. She's complicated and badass, she's sometimes silly, and everything is elevated by a great performance. Florence Pugh shows us that she does in fact have the star power needed to lead a Marvel flick. Bob was great. Lewis Pullman really brings an innocent presence to the character that was imperative to him feeling like a lost boy who has just been dealt the world's worst hand. If you know the gist of his character. I feel like we could have seen a little bit more development with his character. Once he starts going from point A to point B in his character arc, He gets there rather quickly. Red Guardian is mostly just the comic relief, which feels a little bit unnecessary because honestly, if we pulled him from the movie, it would probably have an appropriate amount of humor. Nevertheless, I kind of liked him here at times, and I liked him in Black Widow too. Really, it's just David Harbour's commitment to playing him in such a boisterous way that makes him such a great character. Bucky is a nice inclusion. His involvement in the story makes a lot of sense, and he really fits right in with a bunch of guilt-ridden characters, but honestly, a big part of his arc that was set up for this movie felt completely wasted. John Walker, aka US Agent, has fallen from grace, of course, and the other characters like to poke fun at him for that. He doesn't really feel like a fallen hero, though. Honestly, none of them really feel like scoundrels so much as they just feel like edgy heroes. And I think part of that is because we don't really get to see what the public thinks of them. Perhaps even if one time in the movie we had seen a stranger recognize John Walker and shame him for it, then his struggles would feel a bit more real. You know, show, don't tell. Val, I have mixed feelings about. They kind of try to make her seem complicated by fleshing her out and adding a little bit of depth, but honestly, she just didn't really feel like much more than a cliche, morally ambiguous boss. Ghost is just there for the ride. I don't really understand why she didn't just leave halfway through despite having several opportunities to do so. She doesn't really have an arc and she doesn't really have any agency in the story. And last but certainly not least, we have Taskmaster. She was just so good, the standout in the movie. Despite the movie having several things that I think could have been better, I generally had a good time with it. It's not a bad movie by any means. In fact, it is the first MCU movie in a long time that feels like it was made with the intention of making a movie that is successful in its own right, rather than just being made to grow the greater MCU. So they did not pack this movie to the brim with cameos, which is a really nice contrast from last year's Deadpool and Wolverine, which, as fun as that movie was, it just relied more on cameos and fan service than it did being a good or unique story. Coming from Daredevil Born Again right to this, it feels like Marvel is taking steps in the right direction. Both projects did go through several rewrites in pursuit of giving the fans what they've been asking for, so hopefully their upcoming projects that are made from scratch with this feedback will be a nice return to form for Marvel. Overall, I thought this movie was decent. It's definitely among the better recent Marvel projects, but the studio still just has a little bit of room to improve. I also just want to add that they really need to chill out on spoiling their own movies. Obviously, the whole chair stunt with Avengers Doomsday spoiled a couple projects by clarifying which characters would survive to be in that movie. The post-credits scene of this movie kind of does that too, so even if you steered clear of that whole chair live stream, or you steer clear of Marvel internet discussions in general, the movies themselves are spoiling other projects. I don't want to tout it too much because for most people it is hardly a spoiler, but for casual Marvel viewers, they could be left thinking, oh, got it. I guess I can expect that to happen in a future project. What's also funny is that I even had the post-credit scene spoiled by the credits themselves because in the credits there's a song title that makes it obvious who we're going to see because they weren't in the movie yet at all. So once you see the mid-credit scene and it just rolls to the normal credits and you're waiting for the post-credit scene, try not to read any of those credits if you really want to be genuinely surprised. Thanks for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you next week with my review of Friendship.